What are you having for dinner tonight?
Who, me?
Yeah,
Prime rib. No, actually, it's ribeye.
ribeye.
Sous vide. We're going to sous vide a really beautiful prime ribeye. And I don't know what we're going to have with it, but we're sous videing it.
Sous vide. That's so hipster.
Oh, no. We've been doing this for a while. It's pretty freaking amazing.
Before the hipsters, you were doing this?
My mouth is watering just thinking about it. Oh, my goodness.
Actually, my chef friends, when I make fun of their sous vide machines because they've become so trendy now, and I know that you are always ahead of trends. We're going to talk about that later on. But they say it's worth the hype. The sous vide machine is amazing. It works.
It is. Yeah, it is. So much. It can make a really bad piece of steak really good.
Oh, so that has really just opened up itself to all kinds of terrible chefs
Kind of. Yeah.
or cheap cuts of meat. Lynn, how do you feel about doing a little podcast here?
I'm excited about it. I think it's a whole lot of fun.
Woohoo!
Yeah, woohoo.
First podcast?
Yeah, first podcast.
Nice.
Woohoo.
Hey, Unlock listeners. This episode's brought to you by Point Central, the leader in business-grade smart property solutions designed for rental properties. Point Central's technology helps you increase property safety, reduce operational costs, and improve guest satisfaction. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Rental Guardian. With over 1 million property owners, thousands of property managers, hundreds of software partners and counting, Rental Guardian is arguably the most complete and trusted travel and damage protection platform in the industry. You can learn more at rentalguardian.com. And Breezeway. Breezeway's operations platform makes it easy to ensure quality, safety, and cleanliness across your properties so you can deliver an amazing guest experience every time. Head over to breezeway.io to learn more.
Hello to my fearless vacation rental podcast, Producing Friends. What's up, guys?
That's a t-shirt.
That is a t-shirt. How are you guys? Are you officially running a vacation rental business in paradise just yet?
Pro bono.
We're easing into it.
Pro bono vacation rental business. In all my years of work, I've come across plenty of people who have built extremely slim margin business, but I don't think I've ever heard pro bono. How's that work?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
We're working out the kinks. We're off the grid. There's a lot to kind of figure out in terms of how to offer a good guest experience. Right now, it's sort of like camping in a mansion.
That sounds like a new experience you could put on Airbnb.
I'm just going to say this. At the moment, we have 10 coolers in the kitchen and an empty fridge.
What's in the coolers?
Food. Like camping. Matt, come on.
Oh, okay, because the fridge, I got it. I didn't know if you were doing some kind of experiment with eggs or something. I don't know. You guys are just now officially becoming vacation rental pro bono hosts. But you've had a funny kind of learning trajectory because we've been working together for far longer than you've been actually running your own vacation rental business. You've got something of a reverse masterclass in how to run a vacation rental management company. But one thing we know more than anything else is what a good vacation rental experience feels like as a traveler. And today's guest, Lynn, is just the essence of that. Tammy, does that bring you back to some of our wonderful destination shoots?
It does, because we always talk about the life-changing experiences. Those moments that you just want to take back home, you're going to try to replicate, you're going to look for that feeling your entire life. And the fact that she grabbed an experience that meant that to her and built a business around it to offer the same experience or similar to people in her area or closer to home, it's inspiring, and it just makes you want to take that moment on your trip where you think maybe I'm gonna start doing this and actually go for it.
Well put. And I think those kinds of memories, those kinds of experiences, despite the fact that that phrase is sometimes overused, is more important today than ever before. I think the importance of family and sharing time with people that we love, it's a newly focused priority, and I think in a lot of people's lives. And from a limited edition standpoint, doing the things that cannot be replicated by others, Stu, Lynn is kind of our prototype, if you will.
Yeah, Africa inspired glamping in Texas. I think she literally has been one of the main limited edition examples in all the presentations I've seen from you on the subject. So I'm very excited to get into this interview with her.
Yeah, Lynn's business, despite managing one property and wanting no more properties, um, she has really reached something of an apex of vacation rental success for me, to the point that large managers are looking at this kind of business and saying, how can we replicate that level of custom, that level of personalized? She's the future, I think. With that, should we just hit the play button and let them hear Lynn? Lynn Gallimore is the owner of Sinya on Lone Man Creek, which is a romantic glamping retreat in Wimberley, Texas. It's the gold standard of luxury camping since 2019.
Wait, no.
Today I'm going to talk with Lynn about the recipe that goes into a limited edition vacation rental. We're going to talk about some of the challenges to being distinct in her area. And we're going to go through some of the powerful lessons that this crazy pandemic is teaching all of us, myself included. Lynn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure being here.
And I know that you are going to correct me on the dates. Is it late 2009 or something?
2009. You said 2019.
Okay.
I've been in business. We've been here since 2009. So going on 11 years.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I would say 2019. The quarantine is getting to me. Lynn, this is an unusual season of the podcast for us because we're doing all of these interviews virtually, which is also a fun little chance to flex our technology skills. You're talking into a new microphone. You sound crystal clear. I'd like for us to begin by you sharing with our listeners what a normal day is like for you right now.
During the pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, wake up pretty slow, have a couple cups of tea, look what's happening on, the internet, just trying to figure out how things are looking. And then get up and walk over to our gorgeous garden that we put up. Actually, my husband just put up a beautiful raised bed garden.
Nice.
And every morning we go in there and just sit down at the table under the umbrella and look how things are growing and just kind of get excited by the day. And then, come back and
Prime rib dinner.
no, actually, it's kind of difficult because, I have to deal with a lot of issues with my guests right now. And, I try to dedicate at least an hour and a half, 2 hours every day, whether, for the entire month of April, we had no guests. We closed down. I felt that it was responsible to just, not have any guests. And I found out that that wasn't the norm in my little area. There are quite a few places that remained open and continue to have guests come. But I felt that it was responsible to just close down. So, I had to get in contact with every single one of my guests and have a conversation with every single one of them about, what's going on, what we're going to do about it, and just keep them in the loop. And, it meant that I had conversations 3 or 4 times with the same guest about, different things that were happening. I had to reschedule every single one of my guests. And they, I have to tell you, and it meant the world to me that instead of them canceling, they actually insisted on not canceling, and they said, well, when can I come, when can you reschedule me, when can I come? And I was just like, heck yeah, let's get you in here, let's get you in there. And I would say maybe out of all of the reservations, I think I had to move around 30 different reservations. I had 3 cancellations. um,
Wow.
it was astounding, and it made I mean, it's a vote of confidence, if nothing else. And everybody was really receptive. And so, yeah, it took up a big part of my day just thinking about it. I mean, just thinking about it, what I have to do to move every one of my, because I'm used to having back-to-back reservations. And last year we had a 96% occupancy for the entire year.
All right. Well, we're gonna get into the current situation that you're at right now, but I don't want to go anywhere
Sure.
without pointing out the fact that you use the word husband like it's been like a thing for a long time, but it's actually kind of new. Give a very brief summary of your new husband to our listeners, who sounds just like an incredible guy.
He is. I met him the first time when I was 18. He was married. He got married to one of my dear friends way back in the day. Back in the 80s. So 80s. I'm not going to be completely precise about the date, but I met him way back when, and our lives went apart, and and then somehow through that same friend, even though they had been divorced for 20 something years, we all got back together, kind of as just kind of hanging out.
And what was he doing at this point professionally?
Oh, he was in the music industry. He's in the entertainment music industry. He used to be a tour manager, and then from there he had kids and decided he didn't want to be on the road 300 and something days a year. So he parlayed that into all of his people, all the people that he knew, into having a jet chartering company, a private jet chartering company for the entertainment industry. So mostly uh, bands that tour uh, globally, he would set up the planes, the jets for them.
So cool. And did you get a chance to go and meet any of them?
Yeah, but I'd already known quite quite a few people, so I've
Oh, I like that, Lynn. Yeah, you know quite a few people. All right, well, let's jump right into this. Your husband's had enough time on this interview. I actually have known you for what feels like forever, right? It's been maybe like at least 5 years now, right?
at least.
I don't know. It's been forever. And you have always, for me, been such a perfect example of what I consider to be vacation rental success. And I want to get into that in a second, but I know that you have not done this vacation rental thing forever. Pre vacation rentals, what were you doing?
I don't know how to describe myself, but I've had a really cool life in that I've been very adventurous, and have not, this is the longest I've ever been anywhere, going on 12 years. I've
Like, were you
just,
a free spirit?
yeah,
Were you a nomad? Were you like a gypsy?
not a gypsy, definitely a nomad, definitely an adventurer,
A wanderer.
a wanderer. So, my father was in the Air Force when I was growing up, and we got a chance to go to quite a few different places, live in quite a few different places, and I think that kind of was in my blood, and it didn't go away when I got out of the house, and I left my house when I was 17, and from there, moved to New York City by myself, went to Italy, lived there for 4 years, came back.
What was that like, traveling and going to these international cities as a young woman in those years?
Oh gosh, I couldn't get enough. There was just so much possibility, in so many different types of people and places, and it was, I mean, it was something that I felt so viscerally. I would be walking down a street in Italy, in a tiny little town that I lived in, and I felt like I'd been there before. And it was such a distinct, um, profound feeling, and that happened so many different places. As I was, from the time I was probably 24 on, I tried to have like one amazing journey once a year. So, I would go to Argentina and Ushuaia. I would go to Africa. I would try to just go many different places, as many as I could, or live there. Heck, why not? I was young. I could afford it in the fact that I had years, I hadn't gone to school yet, and I was just traveling.
And how would you make money in these destinations, like Ushuaia, for instance, which I don't even know where that is?
Oh, no, no, no. That was just traveling. That was just vacation.
Okay, but what about when you would go to these new destinations? Like you said, you lived in a little town in Italy. What would you do for income?
So when I lived in New York, I studied massage therapy. And in New York back then, it was really hard. It wasn't just, a course that you'd take online or something like that. And it was, a year course that you learned all kinds of different modalities. And anyway, I used that in the very beginning and worked with a homeopathic doctor in Italy. And
Hmm,
it was very lucrative, but even more so, I um,
okay.
taught English as a second language, and I some of my students were like the mayor of the town.
That's amazing.
I know, and back then, I'd have a class of, around 30 kids, and it was just very lucrative.
And the mayor?
And well, no, he was private tutoring.
I was just envisioning like a classroom of kids and then the mayor sitting on the side. And I'd be like, everybody gets an A. Mayor C minus.
Yeah, Merci. You're gonna have to work harder, sir.
And you spoke perfect Italian?
Yeah, in the end, I spoke perfect Italian, and I brought that when I moved back to Texas. I brought that with me and worked for an Italian firm for a while, and then decided it was time to go to school. So I went to the University of Houston for 4 years and got my degree in business and management information systems, and studied marketing as well in that, but I didn't receive any degree in that.
I love how you have all these different kind of chapters and eras of your life. Quick question, I just want to know because I've always wanted to ask a translator this. What's the big secret to translating one language to another?
Think about it every day in terms of, say I'm walking down to or walking into the other room to turn on the shower. So in my mind, in the other language that I'm trying to learn, I'll say, I am walking, sto caminando. And you say it in that way, and you start to like become part of that language. Like you start
Hmm.
thinking in that language. If everything that you do, you say it in that language as best you can. And then I think I have a knack for it, because I also know Spanish, and I can understand French pretty well, but those are Latin languages. And if you ask me about Germanic language, or
Hmm.
I'm like lost. So I think I have a knack for Latin languages.
So my secret was going to be Google Translate, but clearly that does not come out
I'm sure now.
nearly as well as a human could do it. But that sort of fast forwards us into your professional life, and I'd like to know what were the circumstances um, before you made this trip to Africa, which is just part of your vacation rental business right now for me, and how when I use it as an example, I use it on stage all the time, and I don't pay you. Um, I don't pay you royalties for using you as an example, but you are just such a quintessential example of a limited edition vacation rental business. But beforehand, what was going on in life before you made that trip?
To Africa.
Yeah.
Well, I was in a long relationship with somebody that I don't even know how to describe it. Anyway, I was in a very long-term relationship with a man that was very wealthy and quite famous.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
I did get a chance to really experience life in a way that very few people get a chance to. Very exclusive, very, high end everything. And in some ways, it was really great, but there were a lot of things that didn't sit well with me. maybe I guess I'm just a Democrat at heart. It was a really horrible breakup. It just about broke me. I needed to just be in a place where I didn't have anybody around me, because those people that were around me were, I guess taking sides or something, or
Hmm.
I was having a lot of problems with trusting people.
You needed space.
I needed space, and I needed a place that I could kind of put some, put something back in the, instead of taking out so many um, withdrawals from my emotional bank, I needed to be able to start putting something back in.
I love that.
And, um, you know, one of the other eras of my life was having a pet care company in Houston. And what I did is I took care of people's animals. So I learned, it took a lot of time learning how to, a lot about animal behavior, specifically dog behavior. I started training dogs. I started doing a lot of stuff with animal rescue, and doing dog walking and pet sitting and all that great stuff. But you know what dogs do? They're just like 100% like total and complete unconditional love.
Right. So is this like a sort of a one of the reasons why you think to yourself, Africa, I want to go be near families of animals all day?
It was more about um, I didn't want to see any humans. I just wanted to be somewhere that was so completely different from
Okay.
where I was or where I was. I just wanted something different, like everything about it different, like the land, the stars at night, they were different in the sky. Everything was different. There wasn't a thing that was the same about being in Africa that was about being in my life.
So many managers get started accidentally, and that accidental nature is actually one of the most beautiful aspects of our industry. But Stuart, you know what's not beautiful when it has an accident?
What's that, Matt?
Your revenue, or your guests, or the properties that you manage. And for that, we have Rental Guardian. I don't know why I gave that a strange foreign accent. They deliver best-in-class travel protection, damage protection, and liability protection for over 600 managers throughout the world. That is a whole lot of bad accidents removed. In addition, Rental Guardian recently launched Master Cancel, which basically lets you offer flexible terms and conditions to your guests while simultaneously protecting the hard-earned revenue that you and your owners have earned. I like to think that Rental Guardian takes care of all the bad accidents for us so we can focus on the good accidents, although I don't think they'd put that on their website. You can head over to rentalguardian.com to learn more and find out for yourself. You need a Rental Guardian. And this was kind of when vacation rentals entered your life, in a sense.
Not really, not yet. No.
But this wasn't the seed of inspiration?
Yes, it was. It was the seed of inspiration. I just hadn't known it yet. So during that breakup, I I left Houston. I packed up my dog, I packed up my car, and I just started driving, and ended up in West Texas, like not Austin, but West Texas, trying to find a place to just chill out for a week. And I couldn't find it. I looked online forever. It was 2005. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I couldn't find a place that would accept dogs. And, I'm like, what the heck? So I ended up staying in Austin at a neat hotel. Um, and it was okay. But I was, it was like, give me a break. It's a 6 pound dog. It's not like, it's like he's my travel partner. I take him everywhere with me. Just and there nobody would accept me with my dog. And the places that were for offer, in Fredericksburg and other towns, I mean, give me a break. Tchotchkes and ruffles and
What's wrong with tchotchkes?
Tchotchkes and ruffles. It's not my cup of tea.
Okay.
I needed a place. I didn't want to see somebody else's memories or
Yeah, you had been living the life with a famous celebrity for some time.
I just wanted to chill out.
Walk me up to the point that the vacation rental magic starts, because this for me is when I first kind of encounter your story, and when I think listeners are just going to start being even more in awe, as if your background isn't amazing enough. How did you come across this tent?
Well, Africa. So I'd stayed in Africa. It was an amazing, life-changing experience. It was phenomenal. You wake up one morning, and the first morning that I woke up in Africa, in Tanzania, I look on one side of my tent. I open up my eyes, and on one side of my tent is Mount Kilimanjaro. I look on the other side of my tent, and it's the Amboseli Plains in Kenya, and I see elephants roaming past, and it's just like freaking mind boggling.
And you're inside of the tent itself, right?
Yeah, it was a rectangular, very modest tent. It had a sink in the bath area. It had a shower and a flushing toilet. And if you wanted to have a hot shower, then you told the people in the camp that you wanted to have a hot shower, and they would hold a bag of hot water,
Over top?
over the shower part, and it would go into the shower head, and you would have a hot shower.
Wow.
They couldn't see you, of course. It's like they're holding up a bladder. They can't see you, but that's how it is. And it was still really luxurious. I mean, they would cook these meals, these like 8-course meals out of a pot that's in the dirt, and it was just like the most amazing dinners that you could ever imagine. We would, you're not really supposed to walk very much when you're on safari because you could be prey to a lion. So you're always in these trucks, and it was really amazing, 5-star. It was just amazing, but at the same time it was so simple. It was so basic, but it was so 5-star. The linens were beautiful. The food, I keep going back to the food, was amazing. The travel tour guides, they were so spot on with, at least mine was. I mean, we used to play a game that every morning we get into the truck, and he had this thing on the dashboard of the truck, and it was kind of like the Bible of Africa, but it was everything that you could ever imagine about Africa, every wildlife, every you know bird, plant, everything, and you could ever imagine, and it was described in this book. And it's one of those. It's kind of like a Bible where the pages are really, really, really thin and tiny little type. Anyway, I'd get that, I'd put it on my lap, I'd open it up, and with my eyes closed, I'd just point to something on a page. I'd say what the topic of the page was, and he would recite it word for word to me. Every morning that
So,
happened.
so it's suffice it to say that you're at a moment in your life where you needed some time to yourself.
Correct.
You're in this amazing property, and specifically luxury tent. Get me up to the point where you launch Sinya in this property outside of Austin, Texas.
The day that I was leaving the safari camp, the last safari camp that I was at, I remember driving away. And as I was driving away, they were actually rolling up the tents and taking them to the next destination. And I was thinking, oh my God, how is it that I just had the most amazing experience and there was no footprint left? Nobody will ever know that I was there. It's amazing. And I kept ruminating in that. I lived in a high rise in Houston with a 360 view of all of Houston. I'd been back from Africa for almost 3 years. And I finally just got to the point where I didn't want to be in Houston anymore. I had been looking at different structures to have like a doggy daycare in Houston. And I came across these, I was looking at tensile fabric structures, and up came the name of this company, and they were doing like, these high-end tents that were different from the ones that I stayed at in Africa. They were even more high-end. I just thought, well, why don't I do that in Wimberley or somewhere else? So I packed up, sold everything that I had in Houston. I came out to Wimberley and I found this property that was on 5 acres overlooking water.
Was it reminiscent of the area that you were in Africa at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I didn't know that I was going to be doing that when I sold everything in Houston. I just came out to Wimberley because I didn't want to be in Houston anymore.
Hmm.
And when I bought the property, it had a house on it, this tiny little house that really needed renovating. So, back in Africa, when I was when they were packing up the tents, and I said, how can it be that there's so little footprint? I thought, well, what can I do here in Wimberley to make as little footprint as possible? Also between when I went to Africa and when I moved to Wimberley, there was Katrina, and I did a lot of animal rescue out of when there was still water on the ground out of the Gulf Coast. So, I saw a lot of stuff that just really traumatized me. Let's just say it that way. And um, I really kept coming back to the idea that, I wanted to live more simply. I needed to live, more sustainably. And so I came out to Wimberley and I was just going to renovate this house and open up a doggy daycare somewhere. And I kept walking this property and I just came to this one spot all the time that reminded me of that first camp that I stayed at in Africa. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I put a tent here? So I
I like how you just channeled some like Texas accent that second right there. Why don't I just put a tent here?
I'm just gonna put a tent right here. So yeah, I went online and I got, I saw this company and they said, order, this is how you order the tent. So I had to put down a bunch of money when I first ordered the tent, and it's not an easy process. I mean, I'm working with like a piece of paper with a diagram, and they say, well, what color do you want? And you tell them what color, and the models of tents that they had weren't going to work for me because, being in Texas, I knew that I needed a veranda. You need something to shade you from the sun and still be able to enjoy outside. So I came up with a hybrid idea where I took the model of roof model from one, the roof system of one tent and put it with the tent body system of another tent, and that had never been done before. Put that together and then paid for it, and then I had to have faith that in 4 months it was going to show up at the Houston Ship Channel, and I was going to somehow put it up on my property.
Let's walk forward, Lynn, because we've almost used half of the conversation now. And all of our vacation rental people are like, this is absolutely amazing. But where does the vacation rental come in? So describe to me as of right now, and kind of dating back to when you first opened, what Sinya is, and the amenities that are pretty unique that you offer to your guests.
Sinya is a tent. It's a canvas bodied, it's a tent. It's built in South Africa. It's made of canvas. It is 435 interior square feet. The deck that it's on is on almost 1,000 square feet. There is running water, hot, cold running water. There is a clawfoot bathtub inside the bath area. There is air conditioning and heating. There's a hot tub on the back deck. It's overlooking Lone Man Creek. There's a deck underneath over the water. We're about 45 feet up on the ridge over the water.
And when a guest checks into Sinya, what's the basic check-in process like?
Well, it's changed completely, hasn't it?
Well, what was it at the beginning? Because I want to get to a second how your business has changed over the years. But what was it like at the beginning?
So, in the beginning, I built the tent for me. I didn't think I was going to be inviting anybody there. I wanted to just have a piece of Africa here. So I never expected to be renting it out. I stayed in the tent for about 2 weeks after it was up, and I thought, wow, this is neat. What am I doing here in Wimberley and why am I doing it? So I thought, you know what? I'm going to change paths and I'm going to start sharing this. I want to show other people this because so few people get an opportunity to be able to experience this that I'm going to start sharing it. And somebody said, well, why don't you put it on VRBO? And I was like, what is that? VR what? And they said VRBO. And I was like, okay, let's try it. So I started renting it out that way. I was not expecting to be in the vacation rental business.
But were you offering specific things that were especially hospitality, or was it just like, okay, you guys can come and stay in my tent for a few days?
Come and stay in my tent in Texas in August. Hey, it'll be fun.
And pay me some money for it while you're at it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. Because where I live in Wimberley, it's a tiny little town, 2,500 people. It's between San Antonio and Austin, and it is the, sweet spot of the hill country. There's, I think, over 400 vacation rentals or guest houses just in our little town. Everybody wants to come to Wimberley. And I didn't know that, but apparently, that's what everybody does. And I think that when I first started renting out Sinya on VRBO, I think there was maybe 30 listings.
And how much were you at per night at the time?
180. I started renting it out at 180, and it was a local accommodation industry here.
And what was the reaction? Did people start inquiring? Did you make bookings right off the bat?
Yeah. So, I have been so lucky. I can't even begin to tell you. I didn't know how to market a tent in Texas.
In all of your various work and travels, you never learned how to market a tent in Texas, huh?
Without air conditioning and with a compost toilet.
Wow.
I sat there one day and I was like, what am I thinking? I've just wasted all of my money. What am I doing here?
But yet, there had to be one moment, I don't know if it was one guest or like a string of guests, when people start booking and all of a sudden you start thinking to yourself, oh, maybe this is a thing?
Within like a month of opening, actually, I opened in May, and in July, I got a phone call from a woman. She was the camera woman for Christian Amanpour during Yugoslavia and all, the beginning of CNN International. She had
Wow.
lived in Texas a long time ago in the 80s or in the 80s or 90s, and she was in hospice up in Minnesota, but wanted to come down to Texas before she passed away. She rented my guest house or Sinya for 5 weeks. But the thing of it is I'd already started getting reservations for weekends. So for the weekend, she would go to somewhere else, but then during the week, she'd come back and stay with me.
Got it.
And she was fascinating. I mean, she had been hit by a sniper
Wow.
I mean, fascinating. And she just would say, you really got something here. This is amazing. You really got something here. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And I was still able to enjoy it myself after she left. Maybe a month after she left, I got a call out of the blue from Travel and Leisure magazine. And it was the editor, the travel editor, and she said, one of the travel editors, and she goes, so I hear that you're doing this glamping thing.
What? Completely out of the blue?
Yeah, completely out of the blue. And I had spoken with the tent manufacturer, and I had said, so I got this tent, and I'm going to be renting it out. He's like, great, awesome. You know what you should do? And I was like, I have no idea what I should do. He goes, use the word glamping. I was like, wait, that sounds like a surgical procedure. I don't know if that's going to work for me. He goes, no. Use it. It means glamorous camping. And that's what you're doing. So just use that as one of your keywords. I was like, sure. Okay, let's try it. And that's where somehow she had found me. And she wrote, an article, I think, about the other 3 tented accommodations in the country at the time. And, I started getting a little bit more. And then, it started to really start to gain traction. And as I started making money, I started doing more improvements. So instead of the composting toilet, I put a real toilet, with a septic line.
Nice. First things first.
Yeah, and then I put air conditioning, and then some guests had brought a baby pool and put it on the back deck, and I was like, "What you doing there?" And they were like, "Oh, it's just so hot. We figured that this would be more fun." So I was like, I'll put a stock tank on the back deck. So I put a stock I built out the back deck, and I put a stock tank, and and then I figured out how to heat it, and then it became my hippie hot tub. So now it's a pretty cool thing.
You started offering right around that time, if I'm not mistaken, your bee-friendly amenities.
Yeah, no, that was always it. I always had, sustainability in my thoughts because, I wanted to have as little footprint. Again, based on my experience in Africa, they could do these things that had little or no impact on the environment. And I tried, and every thought that I have with regards to Sinya is how is this going to impact the environment? Can this be sustainable? Et cetera, et cetera. So everything that I do, even everything that I do is based on sustainability.
What about the s'mores?
That's luxury. That's part of the glamping thing.
So for those who don't know that kind of laugh, one of the other touches that Lynn implemented was s'mores
Yeah.
kits that were delivered upon arrival. And Lynn, fast forwarding a little bit, you start to see people having that magical reaction that the first guest had. You start to sense the same feeling that maybe you had back when you were in Africa, that special feeling. Um, what was at that point the definition for you of success? There clearly had to be some financial goal in mind, but did you not think to yourself, we've got our bookings throughout the year reserved, we should grow this business to 100 tents?
No, honestly, the monetary thing was never big. I mean, it wasn't the reason why I ever got into it. I mean, this was just like, yeah, I'm going to share
Mm-hmm.
this. It's a really amazing experience. And I think the success is when, I have the same guests come back, year after year for 10 years. They become part of my family. I think when somebody tells me that they conceived a child in, having difficulty conceiving a child, and they conceive a child in Sinya,
Whoa.
and they name the middle name as Sinya, or when somebody tells me that, instead of breaking up, they're going to try and make it work again, and they get a dog in Sinya, in Wimberley, and call her Sinya. It's all of these personal.
Transformative experiences, yeah.
Sinya is magical. It's beyond what I can describe.
I think when I first met you there in Austin, early on, I think I did ask it some sort of embarrassing question like, "How can we make your business more money?" or something, and you were like, Psh. You remember that?
Yeah, but it's not. I've been in a place where money was not an option, and it gave me the opportunity to not have, not think of limitations, not be limited by imagination. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you can just dream something without ever thinking, but I can't afford it, but I can't do that, but I can't this, but I can't. It allows you to put up a freaking tent in the middle of Texas, and rent it out.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you and the experiences that I've always understood how grateful and how lucky I was for the experiences that I've had in my life, that I and understanding how special they are, that if I can, how cool would it be to be able to offer those experiences in some manner, in some touch, in some like thought that. So it's interesting when I first started this and I started getting, booked out 3, 4, 5 months in advance, like fully booked. Somebody says, so that means that you need to raise your rates. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. That's not what I'm doing it for. For me, what it meant was that people that would save up for a year to be able to spend 2 nights here, that was success for me, and I was not going to let that down.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to have an experience that for the most part you have to, have, be able to spend a good amount of money to be able to, to have it. I'm honored that people will give me money to help them have a memorable experience. The people that come here for honeymoons, people that come here to get engaged. I mean, I'm so honored that they're choosing this. This will be something that they'll have in their memory for their lifetimes.
When learning a new language, people often use the word fluent. How fluent are you means how accurately can you communicate yourself. And fluency applies to technology too. How technologically fluent are you means how is your business utilizing all the tech at your disposal to achieve your goals? How well are you expressing yourself through technology? When it comes to cleaning, for instance, tech fluency means using technology to ensure safe, clean, high-quality properties for every single guest in the wake of this pandemic. Breezeway combines deep learning technology with mobile-first task management. That basically means that your team members, no matter where they are, in the office, in the car, inside of a property, getting it done, Breezeway automates those operations and gives you confidence that every property will be ready for the next day. In this case, tech fluency is about complementing your most precious asset. That's your team and their judgment. It's about closing the communication gap. Tech fluency is about using a tool to enhance all of that. Breezeway has been helping over 400 managers transform the way they care for properties and best respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Its founder, Jeremiah Gall, has been in the game as long as anybody. He was the founder of FlipKey. He has a sense for the kind of technology that can empower independent businesses. Head over to breezeway.io to learn more. When it comes to maintenance, how often are you scrambling to send somebody out to a property in the middle of the night, or worse, on one of their days off, to do something menial like replace a key? In this new post-coronavirus world, guests are going to be especially on edge with human-to-human interaction. And in this case, tech fluency means doing the things that humans could be doing, but doing it much more quickly, much more efficiently, and as it relates to your business, much less expensively. Point Central is the leader in business-grade smart property solutions for managers. They're increasing property safety, they're reducing operational costs, and they are improving guest satisfaction. This is an example of using technology only when it enhances the experience for both the guest and the business that is hosting them. Sometimes people get confused and think to themselves, tech is all about you. But when tech can solve both sides of the puzzle with things like water leak detectors, HVAC analytics, humidity sensors, smart locks, smart thermostats to keep people from jacking up the air conditioning, that is what a vacation rental business of the future looks like. Point Central is offering safety services like smoke, carbon monoxide, and intrusion monitoring. So head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more.
And so as this thing continues to grow and people are having sort of transformative moments and they're starting to come back year after year and your calendar is becoming harder to get availability to, eventually there came a moment, and walk me through it, when it seemed like the competition in the area was almost a result of this tent idea, because all kinds of new competitors arrived, right?
Yeah.
Started to impact your business?
Within 35 minutes of Sinya, 8 different locations have set up tents or, something similar and, gotten into the glamping craze. It's, it was really unsettling to me because it wasn't, maybe Sinya inspired them, but it was so abusive in a way, the way that they went about establishing.
Why abusive?
Yeah, I mean, it was strange because they'd all stayed at Sinya, even though they wouldn't admit it. And yeah, what is the
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You weren't buying it?
it's just tacky.
Imitation is the tackiest form of flattery. That's the new phrase. And as these businesses started popping up, and maybe not doing things at the level of detail or attention that you had, Did you start to notice anything within your own business about bookings, income?
Yes and no. So, being that limited edition, the listing site independent.
I like how you're just throwing out all the buzzwords right now. For those who are VRMB subscribers, listing site independence, of course, is our marketing diversification theory. And limited edition being our concept that you should only focus on activities that do not scale, that cannot be replicated, or perhaps more accurately, only replicated on your terms. Lynn, you started off as the original LTD, but you had all these posers in the area. Does that affect you?
It did, and it really got under my skin. And I just didn't understand why, people were ripping me off right and left, copywriting, copyright, infringing on my copyright, pasting entire pages from my website onto theirs without any like thought about, the illegality of it.
That's so lazy too, if you think about it. Like it's just so. I understand why you said abusive.
From the very beginning, when the agent for the tents told me about the word glamping, I got real weary about that word because it sounded to me like it was going to be a fad.
Totally.
And the last thing I ever wanted to have, Sinya was never in my imagination ever to be a fad. And I was so trepidatious about using it in any keywords or anything like that. And there was a point where I wanted to try to change it to luxury camping and just get rid of the glamping thing altogether.
But at that point, it had gotten out. The toothpaste was out of the tube.
And there was no way of cramming it back in. So there was a while that it really started just bothering me. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I've never even had the thought or idea before. So why am I letting them bother me now? I need to only focus on what I see in my future. I need to continually improve, update, just concentrate on why I'm where I'm at now and go forward and not think about what's behind me, not think about people that are,
outside of your control.
well, not only outside of my control, but it's like they're going to do what they got to do. And if they're trying to make it look like Sinya or whatever, let them do it. That's not, I'm just going to continue to focus going forward.
And if you were to take the moment that your business was at its very top, when it was impossible to get a reservation at Sinya, what were bookings like when you were feeling those effects most? What were they looking like?
I think it was the beginning of this year, actually. For the first time,
Mm-hmm.
I had like an entire week off. And in the beginning, I was really concerned about it because I'm not on Airbnb. I'm not on VRBO. I am absolutely listing site independent. I am not on any
Yeah, baby.
sites. I know.
High five.
And it's been amazing. It's, I get a chance to, be my own boss and not have to.
But would it be fair to say that, because this is an argument I've heard, or not an argument, but an opinion that is worth including in the listing site independence framework, is that if you do not use listing sites at all, you are maybe not taking advantage of getting new bookings. You may only be dependent actually on your own website or your own repeat guests. Were you starting to find that there were fewer new guests coming in?
What's interesting is that, how everything's changed so dramatically in the last 5 years with Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. I am listed on
Glamping.
Yeah. And, the Instagram, so I've always been ranked really high in, Google search and whatnot because of all of the publications that have contacted me and put me on in their magazines. When you were in Austin, I showed you another magazine article. So I've always been ranked really high up there. Now with Instagram and all this other stuff and all these quote unquote influencers and, trying to get in contact with me to, swap or barter, a stay with getting tweets or, a post on Instagram, and, for free nights of stay.
Getting tweets. I like that.
Quite frankly, I don't want them to stay. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
influencers staying. That's not what I'm doing. And, it's not why Sinya exists. And when I started to understand that, I'm going to focus on the certain subset of people and I'm not going to think about the fad, I started to relax a little bit more about having to have Sinya booked, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, and I just kind of like said, you know what? I'm going to stay at Sinya that week that I didn't get booked in January.
Mm-hmm.
I had the best time I could ever imagine.
Because you weren't staying there at all. It was fully booked with visitors.
96% occupancy for the year.
And you built that originally for yourself.
Yeah.
And now you have an extra week and you're like, I'm going to go and stay. And you're like, oh my gosh, I was actually right. This is amazing. Now I see what all the travelers are talking about in their reviews.
And I almost got like, I don't want to rent it out anymore. I want to just be here by myself. I love this, babe. Can you, and we were, boy, I would have liked to have.
Wait, does that bring us up to more or less current day when you told me you were going to spend your quarantine out at Sinya?
Yeah, and it was amazing. Oh, I cried when I started, having guests again. So the entire month of April, we were, we closed down, and I think we stayed there for 3 weeks, and oh, it was so amazing. I mean, the hot tub, taking an outdoor shower under the stars. The weather right now is absolutely beautiful. I can't tell you how what and March, April, and May are the most beautiful months in hill country in Texas, and you get to stay in this really posh tent, for 3 weeks. I could live there permanently. We just and we had just gotten married, by the way, so it was kind of like a honeymoon on this property. Besides being in Africa, I couldn't imagine a better place to spend our honeymoon. So
You built your own little safari tent in Wimberley. It's so amazing. And is your husband as smitten with the property as he is with you?
I think more so.
He married me for my tent.
No, well, you know what? He said that he fell in love with me when he saw the plumbing job that I did at Sinya. So I did all the plumbing for Sinya.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's impressive. And did you not make this shower?
yeah, outdoor. So he saw the plumbing. He saw the way that I did the plumber's putty and tape, Teflon tape. He saw the way that I put the joints together and everything. He was like, "Boy, that's a really good job." I said, "I did that," and he was like, "Oh."
A newfound admiration. And so now is he hanging around the house? He's like, honey, the toilet needs fixing.
No, he's amazing. He has helped me so much, and I never thought that I would ever have anybody that like that could do things as well. I'm kind of a Jane of all trades, and he's right up there with me. He says, I'm going to put a garden in. I was like, put a garden in. And it's gorgeous. And we enjoy it so much. And now we're getting ready to have a chicken coop and chicken run. And he's building that. And, it's like he gets it done.
Yeah, now I see why you're attracted to him. I have one last question for you. We've talked about how you kind of found yourself in this tent
Uh-huh.
at this moment in your life, and how you more or less replicated that magic back in Texas.
Uh-huh.
We've talked about how when you put it on the market as an offering, people flocked to it and validated this incredible vision that you really just originally made for yourself, but almost found more joy in sharing with others. And it took off. But then you also found that a side effect of that was that tons of other people started doing this tent thing in the area and started irritating you and started copying from you. And with competition and with the general rise of vacation rental properties in general, you started seeing your bookings go down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this final moment of finding yourself in that same property, almost, I was going to say full circle, but it's like a figure eight.
Mm-hmm.
Does this give you any new perspective on the role of the vacation rental in your life?
I think about it every day, especially right now with, trying to grapple with what is going to be the quote unquote new normal. It's such a fluid time right now. I don't like to take risks, but at the same time, I like to be able to, create. Design is something that's always been really important to me. So not just the tent, but also a person's experience at Sinya is kind of, a design thing for me. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. I kind of feel so what I've had to do going forward is space one entire day between guests to be able to disinfect Sinya and make sure that it's a safe place for the next guests.
Right.
Instead of them being, a 4-hour turnaround, now it's a 28-hour turnaround. I would like to think that I'm going to enjoy the time off in between guests, but I haven't gotten my routine. I haven't gotten it to a place where I feel really. it's. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like in the future. It's. I'm grappling with it, and I think I want to continue to do the vacation rental. I'm glad that I don't have to do more than one vacation rental. I'm glad that this guest house is all that I have. Um, I I can concentrate and do what I can do here to make a guest's life or experience a better or a good great experience, somehow touch their lives in some way. But I can't do that with multiple tents, and I'm going to be getting a major cut in income because of that, staggering the guests. And I don't know what the future brings.
So here's actually, I lied. That was not my last question. Here is my last question. Would it be fair to say that if the vacation rental side of things became too challenging for whatever reason, based on the time and energy, brain power you had to allocate, would it be fair to say that you return back to a home that you still and forever will consider a really special thing, and you'll probably live there or maybe one day sell it to somebody that you really like? I mean, you can fall back on that foundation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't, I thought about for a while selling it just because I was so fed up, but I've fallen back in love with my property. I've fallen back in love with Sinya. And, right now, this time that we're spending here, it makes me appreciate much more, Sinya. It makes me understand that, what I am offering is something that's truly needed in these times. A place of respite, a safe place, a place that, people can just de-stress and, I mean, Sinya is the ultimate isolation spot. And I know that it's important, but I also know that, I've done, and my husband now, he's helped me so much to improve this property to a point where, if tomorrow we did decide, to just sell it to a good friend or client, ex-guests that, have expressed interest in it, I would be okay with it as well. It's, I have lived different eras and different times and I've worn a lot of different hats. Sometimes I wonder how much longer, this needs to go on or if it's time to give it to somebody else. But right now I'm in love with my property again, and I just want to take care of Sinya and make sure that, all my guests have a great experience coming.
That is a beautiful, beautiful way to end this conversation. Lynn, enjoy your prime rib sous vide dinner tonight, and appreciate you sharing your wonderful story with our listeners, because I think it is just the consummate example of aspirational vacation rental success. Thank you for such a wonderful chat.
It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and good luck with everything. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay sane.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did having it. The episode was produced by Tammy Rowe and Stuart Hooper of Mango Fish Studios. Our intro song is The Moon of Pajang by Instant Party. And if you feel inspired, please consider sharing to social media with your big takeaway. We love takeaways. They make us feel great. Lastly, if you want to receive updates, you can do so at vrmb.com/mmm. And if you want to join our virtual community of vacation rental professionals, become a member of VRMB's Inner Circle today. Until next time.